everything you think you know.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the mini-pod for...
Mini-pod?
Yeah, that's right, mini-pod for X-Men Apocalypse. We're going to review this movie. Today, let's see, so I'm here. Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins is here, and Barrett Scher from Music Video Sins is here. Jeremy is not here. He has a lot of stuff on his plate while we do this, so he unfortunately will not be here. But we can talk about this. We can talk about this movie. Mm-hmm. I saw this over the weekend. I actually went. I was in a part of Georgia that very few people know about. I drove my mom down to her high school reunion and everything. She needed me to do help her out with that and everything. So I was like in this southern part of Georgia called Alma, Georgia. And there was a point in the evening where I decided I'm going to drive down to Jacksonville, Florida.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
How far away was it?
It's 100 miles away.
Jesus.
But you know, there's nothing going on, man. There's nothing going on in Alma. And we're at this place called the Blueberry Inn, which is it's a golf course. I mean, it's way out in the middle of nowhere. And so, like, I'm sitting there. There was a little function or whatever that I attended, and then it was 7:00, and I was like, "Man, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna sit in this hotel room for the next few hours, just doing nothing." I just decided I'm going to do the crazy thing and drive down to Jacksonville, Florida. And there were the closest theater, according to Fandango, was like 20 something miles away. So I could have gone to that, but I said, nah, fuck that. Wow. So I went down to Jacksonville, Florida, and I went to this theater. It was really cool, actually. It's an AMC that it has a bar inside of it.
Nice.
Called MacGuffins.
Yeah, they don't have those in Nashville?
No, they don't. I don't understand
they're
that.
At all the ones, they're at all the ones in Chicago, all the AMCs.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. My God. See, we don't have AMC here. We used to a long time ago. Fountain Square used to be an AMC.
Oh, yeah. It's just Regal and
Carmike. And then there's like occasional, I think there's a Rave, and there's maybe one other chain that's got like one theater here or whatever. Mm. But no, we don't have anything cool like that, man. Like Regal, when they come in, it's like, look at that. We got stereo and, stadium seating, that's their big, and maybe an RPX. That'll be their big thing. But, a lot of these theaters are doing really good things where they're like, you know what, let's up the ante a little bit. Here's a bar, and inside the theater, they have nothing but recliners as chairs.
Yeah. I love that.
Oh, it's so badass. Oh, it's so badass.
Did you pick your seats?
Yeah, and you can pick your seat too. Yep. And I always wonder this about Nashville, because we're this city that's like, we're an it city, but we don't have those type of things. Yeah. That just drives me insane.
It's the little things. Yeah, no, I love that. It's pretty much all I go to is AMC up here. Mm-hmm. And yeah, all of them have the reclining seats. They have the bars in there. Some of them have like the full arcades and stuff like that. And it's awesome, man. The reclining seats, like, there's so much elbow room, and you just relax, and it's terrific. There's the only problem, the drawback is there's like 20 seats in the theater. So if you don't get in there, like for a new release, you may be out of luck. But yeah, it's awesome.
But and also it even seems like, even though I actually happened to be sitting near one of these people, so I didn't get the full effect, but they also seem to have sort of combated this cell phone in the theater thing by just putting big walls between you and like the next level down, like at least in the theater that I was in. So like, I didn't see anybody who was below me. So if they pulled out their phone, I didn't see it, but there was a person right next to me who kept shining her cell phone in her face, sitting there like, you know, updating whatever the Kardashians were doing.
Yep.
I'm completely, I'm completely stereotyping, you know, a young lady there, and I'm sorry about that, but
yeah,
but whatever was important enough to shine that huge bright light in, they did it the whole movie.
So you were very comfortable in watching this X-Men movie.
I was very comfortable. I enjoyed the experience of going into this theater to watch it. Now the movie itself, I'm going to say just right off the bat, not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But still, it's still too much for me to deal with. There's too many characters, and there's just, I mean, can we focus on anything anymore? There's so much going on in X-Men Apocalypse that I just had a really hard time, figuring out. And there was some times during the battles, like towards the end, where and not neglecting the fact that it's yet another cut-a-thon. I was genuinely several times going, which side are they on again? I was genuinely sitting there to myself. I was like, oh, that's Storm, and we've known Storm for a really long time is one of the good characters. And then like, oh yeah, she was recruited by Apocalypse in this movie, so she's technically one of the bad guys, but then she's struggling with it because she doesn't like what she sees and all this other stuff. But there's all these characters like, oh, which one are they on? Which side are they on? I can't. You have Magneto doing his own thing for a whole while, for a whole time, and then before he gets recruited towards the end. But there's so many different things going on at once that. It's I think a mess appropriately describes this movie.
Yeah. So to start off, to say, obviously this is a spoilery conversation. We're going to get into the ins and the outs of all of this. But I actually texted Chris as soon as I got out of the theater because I was interested in his opinion. Obviously, I like this movie more than I thought I was going to, and that's like I kind of liked it. Actually.
Okay.
So yeah, it was weird because I've always liked the X-Men series from the first trilogy. I didn't mind The Last Stand, even though it was pretty much hot garbage.
Yeah, you know what? I was the same way about Last Stand. Like it was, I think it was a movie that a lot of people just love to rip on just because. And Brett Ratner doesn't help anything. He never makes anything better.
Yeah.
But I also thought, just like this movie, it was just it's like unfairly dumped on because of some other external factor. Even though Last Stand's not a great movie, I'm not trying to say that.
What I loved about Last Stand is how they completely innocuously introduced this idea about classes of mutants, like a class 5. This is the most powerful class 4, class 5. But I was reminded of that, and we'll just get right into it. I was reminded of that when Xavier was looking in Cerebro for Rose Byrne and completely misses that there's a huge ass mutant, like probably 60 feet away from her, buried in this thing.
Oh yeah.
And like if he had turned it on mutant vision, he would have completely noticed this whole thing that created this whole big earthquake and everything that was felt around the world, by the way. I just thought that was hilarious. Like, oh, there she is. And he's completely missing like the original mutant.
Yeah. Well, and look, and Rose Byrne is not the most important. I mean, she's probably the least essential character in the movie, and then you have Olivia Munn, who's also right there.
Munn is right there.
But like Rose Byrne, like she was in X-Men First Class, another movie that I really liked. I really liked First Class. But she's just kind of randomly thrown into it. Like, oh yeah, remember Rose Byrne? Let's put her back. Yeah, she doesn't exactly. And for some reason, I'll never understand this. Like, oh, I just happen to be investigating this big thing that's happening in this movie. That's why they need her, is because is that she knows about Apocalypse or she knows about the story behind it and everything. Like, why are you investigating this again? Why is this? Is it CIA or FBI or whatever? Why are they investigating this again? Why is this a big deal? And why is it why is it her personally. I never understood that, but
she's into it.
It's because they need to put her back in, and James McAvoy can get get the love interest back. But anyway,
exactly. No, I mean, what I liked about I think the overall reason that I like this movie is that the thing that bothered me so much about Civil War and Batman v Superman was this obsession on like how many deaths they've caused, and that's the driving force with both of those movies of just like, oh man, we killed all those people in the line of fire. And X-Men doesn't give a shit about anybody else in their way.
I mean, I think a lot has already been said about it, but Magneto at the end kills probably millions of people at the end. Yeah. And then everything's kind of just, it's cool at the end of it. It's all right.
Since walking around the mansion. Yeah.
Since you changed for good at the end, we'll let you slide on that one.
Well, what did you like about
it? Okay. Yeah. And in fact, that is a good question, because I was about to say, Evan Peters as Quicksilver is so outstanding. In fact, both the scenes that he has in X-Men Days of Future Past and this are probably some of the best comic book hero stuff that we've seen in anything.
Yeah.
In the past few years. Because they're so fun. They're so fun, and maybe because everything is slowed down for us, like we have his perspective on everything, we see what's going on. It doesn't resort to the quick cutting and all that. We see what he sees, and it's it's always thrilling and tremendous, and he's just engaging. So that's a huge part of why you would want to go see this movie is once again, he's got one of his scenes, and it's like, I could stand for a movie of this. I do wonder if Quicksilver could have his own movie, because how many times are you going to do that one thing over and over again? But I could watch a whole movie. I could watch it though. Yeah, I could watch it.
I mean, that was so well thought out. It was so well planned, and it was so well executed. I actually went back and watched like the making of that scene, and they had this special camera at frames per second and everything. And he was on a treadmill, and he had his stunt double. Like, everything was just really, really. If they put that much thought into the entirety of these movies, we would get outstanding movies.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's relegated to, little scenes. The other thing that I loved about this, McAvoy's performance, I thought is really good. He doesn't actually get enough to do, I don't think, in this movie.
Well, and a lot of these guys, they don't. There's so much waste in a movie like this. Like for Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique, and this. I mean, is this a female character thing? Because I've mentioned 3 females in this movie who had nothing to do, and Mystique seems kind of thrown by the wayside too. Although it does also, it could also be just the fact that Jennifer Lawrence seems like she's done with the series too. Yeah, so it could be just that, hey, look, I'll be there. You can put my name on the billboard and all that, and I'll do my 5 minutes of whatever I'm going to do in this, and because she doesn't have much to do either. I think Sophie Turner is Jean Grey. I mean, what do we say about that?
Well, I mean, how much do you want to screw with the timeline? I guess they've completely just thrown it out the window.
They have blown it up, man. Yeah. When I was watching this, I was sitting there thinking, how much of this have they just decided? How much of the other X-Men's have they decided just don't happen anymore?
Yeah, if it's over 5 years ago, people have forgotten about it. So
because
we'll just throw that out the window.
In Days of Future Past, it's pretty clear they just want to get rid of the Wolverine movies and X-Men 3.
Yeah.
And sort of say, well, X-Men and X-Men 2 are the good ones. And, and it just so happens to be Bryan Singer on all of these. But, but now there's some things that have happened in the first X-Men and X2 that don't make any sense anymore if they're saying those 2 movies still happen.
Her character in this movie, Jean Grey's character, is essentially the exact same arc as it was in X2, right? She was developing these powers. She was learning to control them and everything. And then she basically turns into Dark Phoenix at the end of both of them.
Well, they at the end of the second one, it's implied that she does.
Right.
Like we don't know if she's dead or whatever, or was it
she does a miraculous act at the end of both of them where she holds up the water and then she lifts up the ship and everything in X2. And now she has this hero moment at the end of Apocalypse.
Because Last Stand is where she just can't control it. She's like blowing up the whole world with it and everything. But in this one, you know, we're actually talking a lot about this final battle before we even get to. We haven't even gotten to the Oscar Isaac stuff yet. But you know, the final battle, I'm just like, if this guy is as powerful as you say he is, why does I know he's taken on like a whole team of X-Men at this point, and then her coming in as the Phoenix at the end is supposed to be that last cherry, but they're making it seem like she does it all on her own pretty much. It's like all they need is her to just blow up there and he'll die. And I'll never understand that. They have a hard time in movies quantifying someone's power. They don't want to make it too big. They don't want to make it to the point where there's so many weak points. So basically it just comes down to, well, that seems good. And they just go, and that's what happens. So like, you know, at the end of this, there's all these guys like going and, you know, doing their different powers, which is cool. I like the idea that they had to team up and everything, but I still don't understand why he dies or why it works, because they've made him so powerful that he can stop Quicksilver in the middle of his run, and he can stop, you know, all this stuff that's coming at him. And he's just like, and then I guess finally it was too many. There was just too many. He just couldn't do it anymore. But
he was conveniently weakened at that point. That, you know, I mean, this is a guy that can look at you and kill you, you know, just by thinking about it. And by the end of it, he's just kind of a typical stock villain. So
and so let's talk about Apocalypse for a second, because okay, so he wakes up and he immediately says, I need some followers. And I always wonder, why? Why do you need some followers?
I didn't know why those were present in the first place, right? Why does he need the 4 horsemen, basically?
Right. I don't get it. If you have this much power that you can make people better with you know, whatever you want to do. You can make people better. You can do all these things on your own and all that. It's almost like, it kind of reminds me a little bit of, is it Sylar on Heroes? The one where he could, basically just anybody's power he could take for his own. And that's how he, you know, whatever. It's kind of like that. Although I'm sure Apocalypse came way before Sylar did. But like, it's kind of like that, but he's got so much power already that I was like, and what's the end game? You know, I'm going to blow up the earth. Okay. So what then?
What took him so long though? Couldn't he just do that by himself?
That's right. That's what I'm getting at.
To blow up this world.
If he's got that kind of power already, he doesn't need to recruit anybody, and he can just do it. And what is he worried about getting arrested or something? I don't get it.
Yeah.
I'll never understand that. And so that's another funny thing about this movie too, is that he wakes up and he just happens, like Storm just happens to be around this area at the time he wakes up, and she like steals to you know, keep her family going or whatever. So she steals money from the like marketplace or whatever. Just happens to do that right around the time Apocalypse is wandering around the same place, and she gets in a fight, and he's like, I notice her skills, I'll help her out. And, you know, and, you know, turns one of the guys into the building or whatever he does. I don't understand.
Brutalizes these people.
Right. And, you know, recruits Storm, and then Storm like, oh, okay, well then we can go to this place and we can run into these people. And he's like, you know, it's like this guy that, you know, the weird, whatever, bald crazy eye guy or whatever. Like they go underground and it's like, I need some of your best. And there it is. There's Olivia Munn and Olivia Munn, who's Psylocke, and I have no idea who she's supposed to be or what she's able to do, and I'm still clueless on that after this movie. I think mainly her powers are staring at something off screen and looking mean about it, and then walking away. That's pretty much her powers.
Very useful. Yeah, he literally recruits the first 2 mutants that he runs into and then asks them if they have any friends.
Yes.
And that's it. That's going to be half of his 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. But there's one scene in that I thought was hilarious. One scene in that in Storm's house when he goes into, he pulls like a Lilu thing, touches the TV, which is also a mutant power apparently.
Yeah.
And learns everything.
Oh yeah. And you know what? This is an ironic love, but I love when, somebody can just touch a TV, and you know what? It's always these flash images that show up. They always have the same images. Like it's always like war and all this destruction and everything. And that's how he learns everything, is because he saw a tank, just kind of driving down a street in Russia somewhere, but it's always those images, it's like, these things that just like, it's just a random assortment of like, you know what? I'm a peace loving person. Let's put all this war stuff in there. It's like Clockwork Orange or something like that, So he just kind of like learns everything he needs to know from the TV. And that's one of those powers where you're like, okay, so why do you need anybody? You've got everything at your fingertips, literally.
You've got TV learning power just by touching like an old tube TV that was playing like I Dream of Jeannie or something like that. And, somehow was able to connect via it wasn't even a coax. It was like, it was an antenna, and suddenly he knows everything about America.
Well, it's kind of like
human culture.
It's kind of like what Scarlett Johansson does in Lucy, where she's like, oh, I need to speak to Morgan Freeman stat. And then she just kind of like touches a TV or something and is able to get into his hotel room, oh my God, that movie's awful. I don't ever want to like compare Lucy to any of the 3 movies we've reviewed so far. I mean, Lucy is worse than Batman v Superman. That's how bad that movie is. Sort of going back to the timeline, it is hard to figure out where exactly they are, because even after X-Men Days of Future Past, it seemed like they said, well, okay, well, this is what we've established and everything, and yet Wolverine is still like captured by Stryker in this, and he becomes Weapon X, which is supposed to be huge for comic book nerds and not me, because I have no idea what that means.
There's a lot of comic book lip service paid in this movie.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, to me, I thought Wolverine was cool enough. Do we have to make him something even more terrifying now? The guy's
that was
already
a fun scene, though.
It was a fun scene. You're absolutely right. That's a good scene, and the Magneto scene with all the soldiers who find out who he is. I was actually, I couldn't, there's tragedies that happen in movies, and you can't help but laugh a little bit sometimes, even in the face of tragedy. But his wife and daughter die because a guy can't hold his arrow in a bow and arrow. And he shoots it perfectly into her back.
You couldn't do that if you tried.
I know. I was sitting, and actually just for a minute, and before I regained sanity, I was like, why was that motherfucker holding a bow and arrow anyway? And I was like, oh yeah, because they couldn't have metal and all this other bullshit.
Yeah, okay. But they wrangled up. As soon as they knew that this guy was Magneto, they wrangled up wood ass bow and arrows.
Yeah.
That apparently they had just been hanging out like in the police armory.
Right.
They're like, hang on, guys, let's bring the wooden bow and arrows that don't have a metal tip on them. Like that.
Exactly. This is from the Prussian dynasty.
Waiting for this moment to use these old ass bow and arrows wooden things. And make sure to keep them cocked the entire time just to accidentally shoot a small child.
Right. They could have, they had to have gotten those out of a museum, right? There's no way. It's just, you're right. It was a silly scene. The arrow just coming in and not only killing his daughter, but his wife as well, in one shot, it was just insane. And then, he goes, but right after that silliness and everything, he finds like a piece of metal or whatever that was on his daughter's neck and then proceeds to make it just go through like Space Invaders and cut down all these, these German soldiers and everything.
Yeah, those poor bastards.
Absolutely. But that's the thing about this. We've just talked about a whole big scene here that was just, it's kind of, I wouldn't say unimportant, but it just adds to how much stuff you got to keep up with in it. And I feel like every time I see Charles and Magneto, or if you just want to call him Eric, every time I see those two guys on the screen and they're doing that tug of war about what's right and everything. I feel like I've seen this in so many movies now that I'm just tired of it. Just, can we end this discussion? I mean, isn't it better that Magneto is just a bad guy and does bad things? And do we have to go through that whole, he's been trying to do this to him through the First Class series. He's been trying to do this 3 times, and he did it, of course, all through the original X-Men's too. Like at the very end, there's that chess match that they're in the first one, where they're like, he's basically, he still thinks that Eric can be good and all that. And I've seen this conversation every time they talk, every time they do this. I'm like, God, do you not remember how many times you've already done this? Like, especially in First Class where they're on the plane and Magneto gets pissed off and, he nearly takes the plane down with him and all this other stuff. It's like, we know where you guys are on this argument.
Yeah. I think they could just give it a passing comment because I actually like that interplay where it's like, he's not going to give up on him no matter what he does. But like, we get it. We get it by now. Like, just kind of do it in passing and let us know that he still loves him and he still wants him to come over to the good side. I mean, we could have been fine with just that close to final scene where they finally actually share screen time and just kind of like check in and be like, hey, still evil? All right. Just check it.
I mean, I agree. It's good. Like, I enjoy their interplay, but I have now seen it in so many movies. It writes itself. I know exactly what they're going to say. And I've heard it just so many times. It gets to the point of just being a time-filling annoyance at this point. It feels like they could somehow make this argument a little, I don't know. They could make this a little bit more of a less vocal about everything. They know where they stand. They just need to.
They could be less explicit about it,
right? So that's where I am on that.
Well, what do you think of? There's been a lot written about Oscar Isaac's performance, and of course, the crazy looking makeup and stuff like that. What do you think of Oscar Isaac's in the role?
Oh, he's totally fine. He's
right.
Yeah, he's totally fine.
He's totally fine.
Yeah, he's overqualified for this role. Right now, he's just one of those it guys. I enjoy seeing him every time. It doesn't matter what he's playing. He's just one of those. He's just one of those actors. He's very magnetic, and he rules in Force Awakens, and he rules in Ex Machina, and I'm always looking forward to him. So yeah, totally fine for what this role is. He's overqualified for it. He doesn't. Again, how do you play a guy who has all the power in the world? Of course you're going to be like what he is in this movie, So, Yeah, I don't. Are you seeing a lot of negative on this? I've seen a lot of people just basically just mention that, oh, I didn't even know it was him until like halfway through or whatever. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of negative, and I've seen a lot of Oscar Isaac was wasted. And okay, yeah, I guess so. But like, you know, you want to bring some gravitas to this character, and if it was just some random guy off the street, I don't think it would have had any impact. I mean, you know, so I think he got as much out of it as he possibly could, and I think that's because he's so talented, and I just like watching him, even if it's under 10 inches of neoprene makeup and craziness. But
yeah,
it's pretty good. I'll tell you what I really liked, and it's one thing that shared all three of these superhero movies for me. Was I really liked the opening scenes from all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think they were well paced. I think even like the whole crazy Bruce Wayne speeding through Metropolis. I know it has its faults and all that stuff, but I thought that was one of the most exciting parts of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I really liked, aside from the fact that I saw it in 3D, and do not see this movie in 3D. It's horribly distracting.
Well, and I'll interject. I don't watch anything in 3D anymore. I did once because it was a time issue, and I regretted it. And I think it was Avengers: Age of Ultron, actually.
Yeah.
And then I only did it because I just had to watch it at that one time, or else it was going to be like, months before I could see it. So, yeah, 3D to me, and this is coming from a movie, a former movie projectionist and everything. I used to, when we got 3D technology, I would just go for the 3D and just say, all right, I'm going to watch the 3D version because, hey, why not? And after time, it just doesn't add anything to, I mean, every once in a while it does. You get a Gravity or something like that is a good one.
Yeah.
I will only watch 3D when it's something like that. Other than that, there's no need for this to be 3D. Anyway, go on.
It's not. Oh, it was so distracting. But that opening scene I thought was exciting. It reminded me, of course, it was like ancient Egypt and all that stuff. And, there's just a lot of kinetics. It was a lot going on. It was a lot to keep up with, but I think it was pretty well done. And I think it set up, the movie pretty well.
Yeah, nearly wordless, and you don't know what exactly is going on, but it's easy to figure out. So yeah, I enjoyed it too.
Yeah, so I mean, I think all these things are just trying to catch up to how they start. Yeah, so my summary is that this was the most fun superhero movie that I've seen, except for Deadpool, obviously. Deadpool's a whole different universe, but between Batman v Superman, Civil War, and X-Men Apocalypse, I had more fun with this. It's just a more fun collection of scenes. It's certainly not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it maybe because they didn't dwell on the mass of humanity that they've murdered. Maybe that's why I liked it more.
Yeah.
Sick.
I think I did. I think I like this movie a little bit more than Civil War 2. I like this movie better than.
Bring out the pitchforks.
I know. I mean, I know that, for the various reasons people disagree or think Civil War is a great movie and everything. I'm always going to pretty much stay with what I believe on that. And it's just the action scenes for me in Civil War are just if you did it with a little bit more time and care, I would be on board with Civil War. Mm-hmm. But the whole reason for that movie being in existence is the battles, and it's cut to death, and I don't know what's going on, and I don't give a shit. So, that's what happens. X-Men Apocalypse is the same exact way, by the way, if not worse. I mean, it has the same sort of deal. I'm not gonna, when I say X-Men Apocalypse, I liked it a little bit better in Civil War. It's just because I mean, just a couple of things are better. It's not like it's such a great movie or anything.
Yeah.
we're not giving this like a super positive review by any means. And you liked it way better than I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a little bit more fun than Civil War for me. But I think what people are going to hear out of this is they loved X-Men Apocalypse and they hated Civil War. That's what they're going to come out of that with.
The main thing is, I think we could probably make a good case for a Quicksilver movie.
Yeah. How about this? Quicksilver and Nightcrawler road movie.
Ooh, nice.
They just, I mean, can you imagine like on the road with Quicksilver and Nightcrawler or awesome. Fear and Loathing with Nightcrawler? And I mean, it would be the best movie ever. And think about it, like, Quicksilver, like maybe they could find a way where Quicksilver and Nightcrawler had to work together somehow. They both have almost similar powers, right? Like, you know, one kind of disappears and I can go anywhere that I know I've been before and or anything that I can see, you know, like maybe, you know, and then by using Charles Xavier, they can somehow like, you know, transmit their powers into each other and like, you know, go places that are, you know, amazing, you know, really quick. I'm sure it's been done in the comics before. I'm probably not doing anything original at all. They probably have done a Quicksilver Nightcrawler road movie somewhere in or road comic book somewhere. It's probably in like, you know, Amazing Tales number 17. It's
on the 3rd page.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as Nightcrawler was introduced into the Marvel canon, he and Quicksilver were buddies. And you know what? And after all
Love
that,
your comic book nerd voice. That's my favorite one.
All that we haven't even talked about fucking Cyclops and Havoc and all these people. I mean,
somebody died in this movie.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
Someone died. That's an improvement.
Yeah,
all this stuff going on. Somebody finally dies. Yeah, there's so much going on. It's a mess. I think overall, I would, you know, this is like a B- maybe.
Yeah.
B- movie,
that's perfect
type of thing. Yeah, 2.5 star, whatever you want to call it. It's not as bad as probably you've been led to believe, but it's not. You know, we're not saying it's great. It's just there's some scenes that are just you have to watch them. It's fun.
Good scenes.
All right, so we're gonna wrap this up, and if you guys want to go to SoundCloud and tell us. If we're way off base on these comic book movies that we've seen this year, I think it's pretty safe to say that between Barrett and I, we'd say what Deadpool number 1.
Oh yeah,
Apocalypse a barely number 2, like a distant second.
Yeah, a way distant second, but
way
I would put that as number 2. That's crazy.
It is crazy, right? And then Civil War is basically a tie or you know the same thing. And then Batman v Superman, obviously the dregs of the superhero movies we've seen 4 fucking superhero movies already. Yeah. And there's more to come. But anyway, if you want to go to SoundCloud and say that we're way off base, I'm sure that you will. We can take it. Go ahead and give it your best shot, motherfuckers. But anyway, we are enjoying reading the comments on SoundCloud, so go on over there. But that will be our mini pod for this week. We'll be doing a few of these over the summer for big ones and everything, big movies, big releases. But anyway, one's this one for this week. This is Chris Atkinson with Barrett Share signing off. We'll see you next time.
See ya. Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com.